Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to discuss a very interesting topic, that is monoclonal antibodies. It is a part of biotechnology portion. Monoclonal antibodies are being widely used for different diagnostic and for treatment purposes. So today's lecture, what we are going to discuss is concept of monoclonal antibodies regarding structure of immunoglobulin types, difference between monoclonal and pluriclonal antibodies, the discovery and very important production and purification techniques of monoclonal antibodies, in which we are going to discuss in detail hybridoma technology and purification of chromatographic techniques, then types of monoclonal antibodies, nomenclature, applications in diagnostic and therapeutic applications, and some of the few examples that currently we are widely being used for monoclonal antibodies. Regarding monoclonal antibodies, we have more and more monoclonal antibodies that are used and important to understand. Secondly, exciting treatment are now available that potential to revolutionize treatment of the worst conditions. So for that we need to understand more and more monoclonal antibodies. For that we should have a background knowledge of immunology. So we should learn more regarding immunology in detail. If we go for further but and how immune system works, let us study a bit more. For monoclonal antibodies, we should have a background of immunology. Basically, we have B cells and antibodies in working in our immune system. B cells are the part of specific immune system. These are the cells that basically produce antibodies. They have antibodies on their surfaces, and these antibodies are specific to a single antigen, and these are useless against other antigens. For example, if we have a B cell that has antibodies on its surface for a certain type of antigen, for example, only useful to specific antigen, here we have bacteria that have surface epitopes, and this antigen have antibodies against these B cells specific, so it will work against it and it will help in immunity. But if it not against the specific antigens, these antibodies, then it is useless. So basically, B cells are divided into plasma cells and memory B cells. So basically, plasma cells are producing cells of antibodies specific to specific antigens, whereas memory B cells hang around for years and play a role in immune system, memory immune system, or delay immune response. For example, what antibodies are helpful? Antibodies are basically immunoglobulins. These antibodies are Y-shaped in structures. These have heavy chains like this, and these have two light chains like this that are arranged in a Y-shaped manner. So basically, lower portion of antibodies is known as Fc portion, that remains the same for all antibodies, and this binds to the cells of the immune system. So the binding of the antibodies is from this Fc portion. Let's suppose we have an Fc receptor on the antigen, and the Fc portion on the antibody will bind to that receptor. So the upper portion is known as variable region, that has millions of possible configurations, and basically this matches to the single antigen. So we can have variety of this variable region depending upon the antigens. So antibodies are basically involved in immune system by binding to the Fc region, and the variable regions are helpful in recognizing the various antigens surfaces. Now, let's study how antibodies interact with these pathogens or basically how our immune system get started. Basically our immune system gets started by the entrance of pathogens inside our body. So what basically pathogens are basically those chemicals that could be cancer cells, that could be body's own cells that play a role in autoimmune system of the body. These cells could be antigens from any sort of protein arrangement. So antigens could be any sort of proteins, and they could be come from anywhere in the body. There is no necessary that these antibody antigens can come where from specific microorganisms. These are proteins in nature, and that can be introduced in the body from any pathway anywhere. This could be fungi, these could be virus, this could be bacteria, this could be any sort of other protein arrangement that recognized by the body as pathogens. So now how antibody works against these pathogens? These are of further five different ways that antibodies can attach to the pathogens. Number one, they could attach to the antigens and become something like antigen antibody complex. This antigen antibody complex activate the classical pathway of the complement system, which in turn leads to the destruction of the pathogen. Secondly, antigen antibody can attach themselves to the toxins that act as antigens and then neutralize the effects of these toxins. Thirdly, antibodies can attach to the receptors of the pathogens and disrupt the function of that receptor. For example, we can stop viruses that can't recognize the immune system and invade in the immune system, or they could bind to the receptors on the cell wall that are important for the cell wall for the essential nutrients, and therefore starving the bacteria and reduce its pathogenicity. Fifthly, they act as opsonins. This involves the attachment to phagocytes, making it easier for pathogens to recognize and destroy that pathogens that would otherwise not able to recognize because of primitive measures usually used by macrophages and neutrophils for recognizing pathogens. So they help these cells of immune system, the phagocytes, to recognize the pathogens. And the sixth thing is the antibody dependent cell mediated cytotoxicity. And this is where the antibodies attach themselves to pathogens or abnormal cells and help the natural killer cells, neutrophils, macrophages, or eosinophils to recognize the pathogens and kill it. Now finally let's have introduction of monoclonal antibodies. We know that we have antibodies which are part of immune system and provide really effective way of fighting off pathogens, and especially they are really good selectively identifying specific proteins that are part of harmful process such as toxins or part of bacteria or part of cancer cells and set the immune system to destroy these antigens. So, when treating these possible to identify harmful proteins or antigens that are associated to harmful processes and would like to stop.
So, for example, you might know with breast cancer have the HER2 receptors protein on the surface of breast cancer cell. In these scenarios, it would be good to have a medication that kills cells associated with that protein, and that is why monoclonal antibodies come in. Monoclonal antibodies, which basically means single clone or single type of antibody that target as specific proteins, and there is a lot of different monoclonal antibodies that target different proteins. However, each monoclonal antibody have its own specific target protein, and we can develop these monoclonal antibodies in lab and then inject them into patient. Once we inject them, the monoclonal antibodies then travel to the target and activate the immune system to attack the target antigens. In the same way, the antibodies produced by the body's own B cells would do. In this way, the monoclonal antibodies essentially utilize the patient's own immune system in a targeted way that is useful for particular conditions.
So the persons behind this monoclonal technology was George Kohler and Cesar Milston. They discovered this technique in 1975 and were awarded by a Nobel Prize in 1984 for the discovery of hybridoma technology. This is the technology that we use for the production of antibodies, known as hybridoma technology. So let's study a brief introduction regarding difference between monoclonal and polyclonal antibodies. Let's suppose we have these type of uh, antibodies for antigens like blue, green and red, and this is our antigen. Basically antigen have different epitopes on its surface, and these antibodies are get attached to these epitopes. So a single antigen could have multiple epitopes on it. And a polyclonal antibody will be such sort of mixture of antibodies such as these all three antibodies in a mixture is known as polyclonal antibody. Mixture of antibodies specific for a particular antigen. So polyclonal antibodies have antibodies that are specific for different epitopes or for a specific antigen. Whereas monoclonal antibodies that we are going to study, these are specific for a single or a specific epitope. For example, a mixture containing only these green antibodies, or only these blue antibodies, or only these red antibodies will be known as polyclonal antibodies. So basically, these antibodies are against a single epitope, green for this one, red for this one and blue for this one. So they are more specific for a single epitope and could recognize a specific antigen or a specific epitope. Here I have represented monoclonal antibodies as MAB. Some in some books you can also find a capital M and small ab. So we can write monoclonal antibodies as MAB, and we can sometimes pronounce it as MAB. So monoclonal antibodies and polyclonal antibodies. We can differentiate between these two. Basically, monoclonal antibodies are antibodies experimentally produced against a single type of cell or substance. These are the antibodies that are identical because they are produced by one type of immune B cell. So these bodies are basically produced through a single type of B cell that could produce antibody of a single epitope. So these are specific to one epitope. And on contrary to that, polyclonal antibodies, these are antibodies derived from different clones of B cells due to presence of many types of specific structures called as epitopes on the surface of single antigen are called polyclonal antibodies. So basically what's the major difference between monoclonal and polyclonal antibodies? That monoclonal antibodies are produced by a single type of B cells whereas polyclonal antibodies are as mixture of antibodies. So these are produced from different types of B cells, different clones of B cells. And monoclonal antibodies are specific to one epitope only, whereas polyclonal antibodies are specific or are recognizable by different types of epitopes. Represents the antibodies from multiple clones of B lymphocytes and therefore bind to a number of different types of epitopes. So if we are going to compare both of these antibodies, first polyclonal antibody, these are derived from different B lymphocyte cell lines, whereas in monoclonal antibodies, these are derived from single B cell clone. In polyclonal antibodies, batch to batch variation affecting antibody reactivity and titer, as these are from different sources of B cells, so there could be batch to batch variation, and in specificity also they may differ. Whereas in monoclonal antibodies offer reproducible, specific, predictable, pure supply of antibody with specificity, as these are from a single clone of B cells, so they are more reproducible. Reproducible means that they will reproduce the same results again and again without variation, and they have more specificity. The results are predictable because these are reproducible. These are pure in nature, as they are from single clone of B cells. In polyclonal antibody, they are not powerful tools for clinical diagnostic tests because they may vary, as we can have they have variation in their system and no reproducible results, so they are not powerful tools for clinical diagnostic tests. Whereas monoclonal antibodies enable the development of secure immunoassay system. Many of the ELISA tests, many of the diagnostic tests involve monoclonal antibodies. The most famous monoclonal antibody test is our pregnancy test, that we use monoclonal antibodies specific for a female hormone that are associated in pregnancy. The question arises that why we need monoclonal antibodies. So basically, the principle of monoclonal antibody is to produce an antibody that is specific in nature and produced against a specific cell or a substance, that is antigen. So basically through this technology we can produce an antibody that is specific to a substance or a antigen. So as they are specific in nature, so they bind to only one epitope and hence they can be used for various diagnostic and treatment purposes. That's why we are nowadays more focusing on the production of different monoclonal antibodies that are used for diagnostic and treatment purposes. The principle of monoclonal antibody. The principle behind this monoclonal antibody is basically the hybridoma technology. This is the hybridoma technology. Hybrid or hybridoma word is associated with the combination of two different species. For example, in hybridoma technology, a brief introduction I am giving here, in detail we are going to study later. In hybridoma technology, we have two types of cells. Number one are the B cells, the B lymphocytes that have the capacity to produce antibodies. And number two are the myeloma cells. And the combination or fusion of these two cells result hybridoma cell. So this is known as hybridoma technology. Basically, why we make a hybridoma, that is the B lymphocytes that produce antibodies have short span of life. They produce antibodies but they die after 3 days. They don't have a longer life duration. Whereas myeloma cells are immortal cells that don't have the capacity to produce antibodies. Myeloma cells are basically cancerous cells and they are immortal in nature. When we will combine these two cells, then the hybridoma cells would have two characteristics. Number one, they could produce antibodies like B lymphocyte cell. And number two, they will be immortal like our myeloma cell. So for that, we use an hybridoma technology. Now let's study steps for the production of monoclonal antibodies, the main topic of this lesson. For that, we have total 7 steps for the production of monoclonal antibodies. Number 1, we will immunize an animal. Number 2, this animal will produce B cells and antibodies, and we will fuse these B cells with myeloma cells, cell fusion. Number 3, hybridoma will be presented in second step, and then we will select these hybridomas and culture them. Then we will isolate our desired hybridomas. Then after isolation, screening of these hybridomas and further cloning, further their multiple copies are produced for the production of antibodies. And then we will characterize and store our antibodies. So this is a lengthy process consisting of 7 steps of the production of monoclonal antibodies. So let's start. Suppose we have an extracellular antigen, and against this antigen, B cells will recognize it, and B cells are then further differentiated into plasma cells. These plasma cells will produce antibodies against the specific antigen. Suppose we have this antigen injected in a mouse. This mouse will produce B cells. Further, B cells are divided into plasma cells. The plasma cell will produce antibodies desired, but these plasma cells are then taken to an artificial growth media or culture media. We will culture these plasma cells to produce antibodies. But the main thing is that these plasma cells will not survive for a longer duration. They have a short lifespan. They will produce antibodies, but the lifespan of plasma cells is small. So we cannot use these plasma cells for the production of monoclonal antibodies alone. For that, we use a hybridoma technology. So, if for hybridoma technology, we have a plasma cell that has the ability to produce monoclonal antibodies, and number 2 is a myeloma cell. Myeloma cell will have an immortal lifespan. These are abnormal cancer cells that are immortal in nature. So, plasma cell produces antibodies, and myeloma cells are immortal in nature. When we combine both of these plasma cells and myeloma cells, we have developed now a hybridoma cell. Hybridoma cells has both properties of producing antibodies and immortal in nature. So a hybridoma cell will produce antibodies, and it will be have longer duration immortal, so we can use this for the production of monoclonal antibodies. So let's start the procedure. In first step, we will have an antigen. The antigen is then injected intravenously into the blood directly to the animal. We take here as animal as mice. So by intravenous injection into the blood of this antigen, the mice immune system will get activated, and the spleen inside this mouse will produce B cells. These B cells are activated against the antigen, and B cells are then differentiated into plasma cells, and plasma cell produce antibodies against that particular antigen. So here these antibodies will be polyclonal antibodies. Now we are going to make monoclonal antibodies from this technology. What we will do, we would isolate this plasma cell, and then we will do our hybridoma technology. Fusion of plasma cells and myeloma cells will occur. We will both incubate these cells in the presence of a polyethylene glycol. This will act as a binder. This will bind both type of cells, or we can also use here a Sendai virus. In certain books, Sendai virus is also been mentioned. So as a result of this fusion, we could have different type of fused cells. We could have fused plasma cells, that are the cells plasma fusion cells. We can have fused myeloma cells. These are the cells fusion of myeloma cells. We can have unfused plasma cells that are not fused. We can have unfused myeloma cells, and we can have fused plasma and myeloma cells, that is known as a hybridoma cell. So now study how we can have these hybridoma cells in large number of cell quantity. So now in our medium we have produced hybridoma cell, and we don't need other cells like unfused myeloma cells, unfused B cells, fused myeloma cells, fused B cells. We only need hybridoma cells that have ability to produce antibodies, and they are immortal in nature. The students, for only the cultivation of hybridoma cells, so that we can exclude other cells, we use a technology known as HAT media. So basically, HAT media is a culturing media that contains these three elements: HAT, H-A-T, H for hypoxanthine, A for aminopterin, and T for thymidine. This is a media that contains these three ingredients in it. So what happens, generally speaking, when we have a mother cell and it divides into a daughter cell, for their division we need the replication of DNA. So for the replication of DNA, we usually need nucleotides. So cell can synthesize these nucleotides in two different pathways: salvage pathway or de novo pathway. So here we are discussing that for the division of a cell from a mother cell to a daughter cell, we need the replication of DNA, and the DNA synthesis require the synthesis of nucleotides. A cell can generally synthesize its DNA nucleotides through two pathways, either from salvage pathway or either from de novo pathway. So these two pathways are separately utilized for the production of nucleotides. So first of all, let's study how salvage pathway works. Salvage pathway basically use the old degraded parts of the nucleotides already present and convert them into new nucleotides. So in salvage pathway, what happens that a cell uses the old parts of degraded nucleotides and combine them and synthesize its new nucleotides. So they don't need their other new synthesis, they also use the already old nucleotides, whereas in de novo pathway the cell utilizes the sugar molecules and other ingredients and form new nucleotides by the use of sugars and amino acids. So they use new nucleotides, but in case of uh, cells cannot utilize this de novo pathway because if for de novo pathway, because of the presence of aminopterin. Basically this is aminopterin, the agent present in HAT media, that basically blocks an enzymes that is utilized for the production of de novo pathway nucleotides. Basically this enzyme aminopterin blocks an enzyme known as dihydrofolate reductase. As this dihydrofolate reductase are utilized by the cells in de novo pathway for the synthesis of sugars and amino acid and conversion them into nucleotides. Here, as this enzyme is being blocked, dihydrofolate reductase, because of the presence of aminopterin in the head media. So any type of cells in the head media cannot divide themselves by using de novo pathway. So in case of a HAT media, this de novo pathway is not usable by any type of cells, either hybridoma cell, either myeloma cell, or either our B cells. So this pathway is not useful for HAT media. That is why HAT media is known as selection media, that it selects the which pathway the cell is going to divide due to the presence of aminopterin, as it blocks this dihydrofolate reductase enzyme. So this enzyme is blocked, the cells are not using this de novo pathway. So the second pathway that is remained for the cell division is only the salvage pathway. Any type of cell that is going to be cultivated in a het media can only be cultivated through this salvage pathway. So now what happens in salvage pathway? Basically, for salvage pathway, not all type of cells can divide. Why? Because in salvage pathway, we need a special enzyme known as HGPRT. The cells that require to be divided by salvage pathway should have an enzyme known as HGPRT. HGPRT enzyme is basically hypoxanthine guanine phosphoribosyl transferase. Hypoxanthine guanine phosphoribosyl transferase enzyme. So only those cells that have HGPRT enzyme could divide through salvage pathway. And for your information, only and only plasma cells have HGPRT enzymes in it. And our myeloma cells don't have HGPRT. So myeloma cells don't have this enzyme. Now what will happen? For your reminder, we have studied that we had five different types of cells obtained as a result of fusion. These were like this. These were like fused myeloma cells, fused plasma cells, hybridoma cells, unfused plasma cells, and unfused myeloma cells. So here we have unfused plasma cells that have HGPRT and fused plasma cells that has HGPRT. Whereas unfused myeloma cells don't have any sort of HGPRT. So now we have these five cells in which two of these myeloma cells don't have HGPRT and two of these plasma cells have HGPRT. So we were discussing that only those cells could survive in case of salvage pathway that has HGPRT. So from this we can understand that these unfused plasma cells have HGPRT, they could survive on salvage pathway. Whereas myeloma cells don't have HGPRT, either these are fused or either these are unfused myeloma cells. So because of the lack of this enzyme HGPRT, they cannot use this salvage pathway. So what about hybridoma cell? Hybridoma cells basically have the characteristics of both this plasma cell and myeloma cells. So because of the characteristic of this plasma cell that has HGPRT enzyme in it. So what happened that until now we have discussed that among these five type of cells we are using het media. These myeloma cells cannot divide because of the absence of HGPRT enzyme, and these plasma cells has HGPRT enzyme, but these have very short lifespan, 3 days or a week. So these are automatically going to die. We don't need to die them. So these plasma cells, unfused plasma cells, fused plasma cells, unfused myeloma cells, and fused myeloma cells are going to die. What will happen? Only the hybridoma cell will grow in this het medium, because these are immortal because of the presence of myeloma cells, and due to the presence of plasma cell that has enzyme HGPRT, they are going to survive. These fused myeloma cells, unfused myeloma cells don't have HGPRT, they are going to not survive. They cannot use the salvage pathway. And unfused myeloma cells and fused myeloma cells have short life, they will automatically die. We don't need to kill them. So what will remain only in this media, in this het media, only hybridoma cells. That's why this media is known as selection media. Only these immortal hybridoma cells will survive in this het media. That was our main requirement. So the cell will divide through the salvage pathway, not through the de novo pathway, and only the hybridoma cell would survive in this het medium. So next what would happen? So up till now, we so het media is also known as selection media. Up till now, we have studied that B cells, either fused or unfused B cells, will have a short lifespan and will switch to salvage pathway, but they will die automatically in het medium. Myeloma cells are HGPRT negative. They don't have this enzyme, so they are unable to switch salvage pathway. Secondly, they are also cannot use de novo pathway because of a myelopterin that have already deactivated an enzyme that is required in de novo pathway dihydrofolate reductase. So the myeloma cells will die in het media. So only the hybridoma cells, that is a mixture of B cells and myeloma cell, would switch to the salvage pathway because of the presence of HGPRT from the B cells and immotor nature of myeloma cells. And further, they are able to produce antibodies. So that's why het media is known as selection media. So students, up till now we have studied that first we have immunized our animal, we injected our antigen in it, it produced the plasma cells. Plasma cells are then produce antibodies. We will take plasma cells and we further fuse the plasma cells with our myeloma cells, fusion, cell fusion, second step we have discussed. And then what will happen, we will have to select these hybridoma cells. Now we have obtained these hybridoma cells. Up till now we have studied third three steps of the production of antibodies. Now we are going to study the fourth step, that is isolation of hybridoma cells. Now, after hybridoma production, our aim is to produce single antibody producing hybridoma cells. As the above made hybridomas are not antibody producing cells of a single epitope, they might produce multiple antibodies against multiple epitopes. So, for monoclonal antibodies, we need such hybridomas that have ability to produce only antibody for a single epitope. So, now our aim is to produce single antibody producing hybridoma cells. Now we need isolation of hybridoma cells and grow them individually. Therefore, next step is the isolation of hybridoma cells of single specificity. This is done by a method known as limiting dilution. In this method, the cells of hybridoma are distributed in multiple well cultured plates at very low density. This is done such that an average well contain a single cell. In the next step, these hybridoma cells are screened for the secretion of antibodies of desired specificity. This screening is mostly done by two techniques, namely ELISA and radioimmunoassay. Once the hybridoma cells are producing the desired antibodies are identified, they are isolated and cloned. In the next step, we have separate clones of activated B cells, each producing antibodies of a single specificity in each case. The antibodies are produced are known as monoclonal antibodies. In the final step, these hybridomas and monoclonal antibodies are then characterized and stored. Mostly they are stored in liquid nitrogen medium. So at the end, a quick class revision for my dear students. Number one is first step we have done immunization of our animal mice with a specific antigen. Now after injection or immunizing our mice, we will take the B cells or plasma cells from it, and then we will fuse the plasma cells with myeloma cells here with the presence of polyethylene glycol or Sandai virus, and then we will get a hybridoma. And after getting the hybridoma, we will select the only hybridoma cells for growth in a het medium at stage number 3 here. And after cultivating lots of hybridoma cells, then we will isolate our certain hybridomas using a well plate method. Then we will do screening of hybridoma cells at fifth stage using ELISA or radioimmunoassay, and at the end we will get our desired hybridoma cells. For example, this red one separately, this green one separately, this yellow one separately, and then we will clone these multiple copies, red ones of multiple copies, green ones of multiple copies, and yellow ones of multiple copies. Each now hybridoma cell will produce antibodies against each single epitope. Okay, now after these cloning, we will further characterize them, we will further purify them, characterize them, and we will store them in liquid nitrogen. Next, we have synthesized monoclonal antibodies. Now we have different types of monoclonal antibodies. They could be known as murine antibodies, chimeric antibodies, humanized, primatized, and human monoclonal antibodies. So, what are murine monoclonal antibodies? whole of the antibody is of murine origin. For that is, whole of the antibody is from mice origin. Major problems associated with murine antibodies include that they reduced stimulation of cytotoxicity, formation of complexes after repeated administration. They can introduce allergic reactions and cause also anaphylactic reactions. So earlier murine antibodies were developed using mice, and now we have moved towards our advanced antibodies. Now the second one is chimeric monoclonal antibodies. In chimeric monoclonal antibodies, we have a combination of murine and human antibodies. Chimeric antibodies are composed of murine variable region fused onto human constant region. We have earlier discussed that antibody has two parts. One is a variable region in the above portion, like here, and the lower portion is of a constant region, FC region. So in chimeric antibodies, you can see here in this diagram that the upper portion is from mouse region and the lower portion is from human region. So it is a combination of mouse and human antibody. So it is known as chimeric monoclonal antibodies. Antibodies are approximately 65% of from human nature. This reduces immunogenicity and thus increases serum half life. So our body will not detect them as antigen because of the presence of this human region. So it will have more serum half life. Number third are humanized monoclonal antibodies. Humanized antibodies are produced by grafting murine hypervariable amino acid domains into human antibodies. So basically in human antibody what we have the uh, hypervariable region of amino acids from a murine region only. Otherwise, the whole of the part of the antibody is from humanized region. This results a molecule of approximately 95% human origin. So these behind weak to the antigens. So these are the most commonly usable monoclonal antibodies nowadays with least anaphylactic reactions or least allergic reactions. So it has major portion of human origin from 95% and only 5% from murine origin. These are latest humanized monoclonal antibodies. Human monoclonal antibody. Human monoclonal antibodies are produced by transferring human immunoglobulin genes into the murine genome, after which the transgenic mouse is vaccinated against the desired antigen, leading to the production of monoclonal antibodies. Now, in this, what we do not inject an antigen inside the mouse that we have earlier discussed in the steps of monoclonal antibody production. Rather, we would take human immunoglobulin genes and we will inject these human immunoglobulin genes inside the mouse. Now our mouse is a transgenic mouse. So we have done its genetic transactions of human genes into the mouse. So now the mouse is vaccinated against the desired antigen, and now the antibodies will be produced through the mouse, but the mouse is transgenic mouse. The mouse will produce the antibodies just similar to human antibodies. So these are known as human monoclonal antibodies. These has least anaphylactic reactions or allergic reactions and are mostly safest monoclonal antibody now currently available. So here are some of the examples. Like in mouse monoclonal antibody, we have complete origin from mouse side. In chimeric, we have this variable origin from mouse side, whereas in humanized, we have only variable region, high variable region from mouse side, and in humanized, we have totally human. And now regarding nomenclature of antibodies. Students, normally we end up the word monoclonal antibodies with a term of MAB. So if the monoclonal antibody is from human origin, fully human origin, then we said MAB, and in front of MAB we add U, like here. So it is known as UMAB. In case of murine monoclonal antibody, murine is a Latin word used for mice. In case of murine origin antibody, we have MAB starting with MO. MO for mouse, MUMAB. So for human, we have UMAB. For mice or murine origin, we have MUMAB. In case of chimeric monoclonal antibodies, that is from transgenic mice, we have CMAB, that is for chimeric, CHI. So we have XIMAB. This is pronounced as SHIMAB. Last, for humanized monoclonal antibodies, we have a word ZUMAB, MAB for monoclonal antibodies, and ZU, Z from this area and U from this area, we known as Zumab. These have very low portion of 10% of murine proteins. So this was the nomenclature regarding monoclonal antibodies. We often heard these words in the end of our monoclonal antibodies products available in market. So, next are the side effects associated with these monoclonal antibodies that we often use for the detection, diagnosis of diseases, and therapeutic effects. Most common side effects we are going to discuss. Number one are the allergic reactions. For example, that can have as itching, hives on the body, flu-like symptoms including chills, fatigue, fever, and muscle and body pains, nausea, diarrhea, skin rashes. These are all associated because of the immune response of body against any substance that is introduced in the body, like antibodies, monoclonal antibodies. When are injected in the human body can react against them. For example, these are more associated with murine origin and less from humanized monoclonal antibodies. Others are like rare, more serious side effects like infusion reactions. Severe allergic like reactions can occur and in very few cases lead to death. Dangerously low blood cell count, decreased red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Basically, these are the blood reactions or autoimmune reactions. Number four are the cardiac complications. Certain monoclonal antibodies may cause heart failure in case of small risk of MI. These are very rare reactions that occur in case of a person with an autoimmune response. Sometimes bleeding. Some of the monoclonal antibodies drugs are designed to stop cancer from forming new blood vessels. There have been reports that these medications can cause bleeding. So these are the side effects regarding with the mechanism of action of drug plus monoclonal antibody. Now, very common and very important applications of monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies are used for the treatment of cancer widely. Mechanism that could be responsible for cancer treatment could be binding of critical receptor and blocking downstream signaling pathways. So our antibodies will get attached to the critical receptor on the cancer cells and block down the stream signaling. Signaling basically involves in the abnormal division of cells. Now when these signaling will be dropped, then there will be no abnormal division of cell, down regulation of receptors as well, and immunomodulations. So these are the pathways through which monoclonal antibodies can treat cancer. Monoclonal antibodies are modified for delivery of toxins, radioisotopes, cytokines, or other active conjugates. So we can deliver our products for the treatment of diseases. Sometimes we use antivenoms or toxins for killing of certain cells. Sometimes radioisotopic elements are used, and sometimes cytokines are used. So we can target these cells, these compounds to the targeted cells delivery through these monoclonal antibodies. How we can target? We will discuss this later on. It is also possible to design bispecific antibodies that can bind with their Fab region both to target antigen and to a conjugate or effector cell. So, in a bispecific antibody, we design a monoclonal antibody from our transgenic mice. So it is a bispecific origin. Half portion of the antibody is specific to one side and half is specific to other side, like this. So this region is specific for certain receptor and this is specific for certain receptor. This is known as a bispecific monoclonal antibody. So we can also use these bispecific mono antibodies for targeting multiple targets or for targeting more than one region or more than one target. We use these monoclonal antibodies for radioimmunotherapy, very much popular nowadays. It involves the use of radioactively conjugated murine antibodies against cellular antigens. So, along with the antibody, as you can see in this diagram, this is our lymphoma cells or a cancer cell. It has a receptor on its surface, and we have targeted a monoclonal antibody containing a radioisotope. So, as radioisotopes have many side effects, so we want to target it to the targeted organs or to targeted lymphocytes. So, we will attach along with the radioisotope a monoclonal antibody like this, and here we have a radioisotope. Basically, what will happen? This region of monoclonal antibody, FC region, will be bind to the lymphocyte only, and as it will bind to the lymphocyte Fc portion, it will release the isotope. So in this way we have drug release on the site of desired targeted lymphoma. Most commonly used nowadays, very popular non-Hodgkin lymphoma, we use the drug as tocilizumab. Next, very important and my very favorite is antibody directed enzyme product therapy, ADEPT. This is a very important technique to understand for you, antibody directed enzyme product therapy. But it involves the application of cancer associated monoclonal antibodies which are linked to a drug activating enzyme. So what it involves the antibodies that are specific for cancer cells, and further these antibodies are linked to a drug activating enzyme. What happens, for example, in step 1 we have a cancer cell with a specific target protein, as cancer cells has specific targeted proteins. For example, breast cancer cells have HER2 proteins. So we will design a antibody that is bispecific and is specific to a target protein. Let's suppose this pink area of the monoclonal antibody is specific to this target protein. What will happen? This antibody will bind to that targeted protein of a cancer cell. Now what will happen? As this will bind to the site, along with the binding, what causes the binding? An enzyme activation. This is enzyme product therapy. So when this antibody is bind, the enzyme present in the surrounding will get bound to that second portion of the antibody that contains a prodrug. Now, as this enzyme bound to the second portion of that antibody, the drug get converted. The prodrug is converted into activated form. Now, this activated drug will be released and will enter the cancer cell and produce its desired effect. So, through this technique, we are doing two approaches. Number one, we are targeting the cancer cells directly. Secondly, we are not releasing the drug and any step like here. The drug is only released when the antibody is attached with the target cell, and the drug is released in such a way that it is a prodrug, and by the conversion of enzyme this drug is converted into activated form. So we are not only targeting the drug towards the cancer cell, but also we are releasing the drug and activating the drug only at the site of action or the site of the cancer cell. So through this we can avoid many of the side effects of our chemotherapeutics agents. Next is immunoliposomes. Immunoliposomes are antibody conjugated liposomes. Through this system, we can also link our monoclonal antibodies with our liposomes or with our lyosomes as well. Liposomes can carry drugs or therapeutic nucleotides, and when conjugated with monoclonal antibodies, they release the drug on the targeted site. For example, we have a liposome that contains our drug, like we have discussed earlier. Inside it, there is our drug present, and when we will attach this liposome through a monoclonal antibody like this, now this liposome become a targeted one. This region, FC region of this monoclonal antibody, will combine to our targeted cell like this, and as it will combine with the targeted cell here, then our liposome will automatically release drug inside the cell. So these are the immunoliposomes. These are the basically targeted liposomes. Here we have an example of an immunoliposome of HER2 receptor that is mostly used in breast cancer disease, that carries doxorubicin drug in it. Last, we have certain examples of monoclonal antibodies for your information. Like we have rituximab monoclonal antibody, that is humanized anti-CD20 monoclonal antibody, that was first monoclonal antibody to be approved by FDA for use in human malignancy, human cancers. This antibody can sensitive chemotherapy resistant cell lines acts by causing B cell apoptosis, used in B cell lymphomas, immunothrombocytopenia, rheumatoid arthritis. So this has a vast application in arthritis and in thrombocytopenia or lymphomas types of cancers. Basically, this was the first antibody recognized by FDA for human malignancy or for human treatments. Second one very common is alimtuzumab. Alimtuzumab targets CD52 glycoproteins, which is highly expressed on T and B lymphocytes. This has been tested as therapeutic agent for chronic lymphocytic leukemia and promyelocytic leukemias, as well as others. That is non-Hodgkin lymphomas. Basically, lymphomas are the cancers very common nowadays of lymph nodes. And for the treatment of these sort of cells, we have B cells and B cells and T cells in our lymph nodes. So we target basically these B and T lymphocytes that have a receptor like CD52 glycoproteins. So we design an monoclonal antibody that is sensitized to these receptors. Next is gemtuzumab, ozogamicin, approved for the treatment of acute myeloid leukemia. Again, this is a humanized monoclonal antibodies that focuses on DNA damaging activity to CD33 cells. CD33 is an antigen expressed on the surface of 80 to 90% of leukemia cells, but no on mature granulocytes or non hematopoietic cells. So, what happens in it? That abnormally dividing cells or leukemic cells basically express this type of CD333 antigen origin, whereas our mature granulocytes or hematopoietic cells doesn't have these receptors on it. So definitely our normal cells are get safe from the therapy, and only leukemic cells are that contains this CD33 antigen on their surfaces are exposed to the therapy, and definitely we have targeted system and least side effects from this therapy. So up till now in detail we have discussed monoclonal antibodies, introduction, production, preparation, applications, nomenclature and examples. A big thank you for watching. For further any questions you can write in our comment section. Thank you.